Now let's start with the authentication of our website. So basically what I mean is allowing a user to register and log in to our website. So before we do this, we need to create a model. So first of all, let's close this index.html. We don't need it for now. And then we're going to come into models.py right here. So this models.py file is basically the file where we create our Django models so we can use it as a database for our project. So now we want to create a profile model. This profile model is going to have different things like the user profile picture, the user bio, the user location, and stuff like that. So first of all, let me explain why we are creating this profile model. So we know that Django as default, it gives us this user model, which a user is going to be able to sign in, sign up, and have some information like their first name, username, email, and stuff. But we want more. So the Django user model authentication, it gives us the username, the first name, last name, email, and password. So those are the only fields it gives us. But we want more. So we want to be able to add the user bio, the user profile image, the location, maybe like the country is from or something. So there are various ways we can go about this. We can create a custom user model, or we can just extend that user model that Django already gives us, or we can create a separate model for the profile and link it to user model using a foreign key. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a separate model for the profile and link it to that user model using a foreign key. So I'm going to show you how we're going to go about this. Now, you might want to do it anyhow you like. If you're already familiar with Django, you might want to extend the database or anyhow you feel it's easier for you. But this is the way I'm going to do it in this tutorial. So first of all, let's create a class. And we're going to name it profile. And that will be we take from the models.model. And now we want to give this field the user. Just pass on everything first. We want to have like the ID of the user. So now I'm not going to say user underscore ID, and I'm going to explain why I'm not going to say it, why I do ID user. So we have user. This is going to be a foreign key that is going to link to that model. We're going to do that. The ID user, this is going to be the ID of the user that has this profile. And we also want the bio. We want profile image, profile img. Pass again. We want the location. So these are basically the things we want for this our models. But for this profile image, we're going to use an image field. So if you're familiar with Django, you know we have different model field. We have character field, the text field, the integer field. But when we want to do something like a profile image, we can use a file field. But that file field will be able to collect like videos, PDF files. But we want to narrow it down to for this field to collect only images. So we're going to use an image field. So what we're going to do is something like this: models dot image field. Now we need to configure some things like where will this image upload to when a user uploads the image, which folder will it upload to. So just the way we set up static files and all those type of stuff, we also need to set up media. So media is gonna like take care of uploading, like basically like the storage where all these files are gonna be stored. Because also when we go deeper into this application, when we allow a user to upload a post, the user will want to upload an image with that post. So where would that image go to? So we need to configure all these things also. And this one is quite different from the others. The only similarity is that we are going to create a new folder again in the base directory. As I said, the base directory is the folder which contains a manage.py file of that project. So now we're going to create a new file. We're going to name it media. This media basically is going to store all the images we're going to be uploading. And now that we've created that file, we need to come into our settings.py. So I'm going to open our project and go to settings. Now right here, we'll just make sure we scroll down and we'll say media underscore URL. Say slash media slash like this. And we also need to specify the media root. Say os.path.join base directory and media. So the name of this folder must correlate with the name we gave it here. So let's save that. Now we can quit this. The next thing we need to do is to go into the urls.py file of our project, not of our app. So we need to come into Socialbook, which is the main project, go to the urls.py file. Now right here, we're going to import two things. We're going to import settings and static. Say from Django.configuration, we shorten it to conf, import settings. Next one is from Django.configurations.urls.static, import static. Good. So this is what we need to import. And now to specify the URL for this media, specify or to configure our media URL, to finalize it, the URLs patterns equals to URL pattern above plus static settings dot media underscore URL, have a comma, you can just bring it down here and say document underscore root equals to settings dot media root. Now we can save this. So what this is doing is it's just specifying the URL of our media, so our media file. So this is just the way we set up anything dealing with media. Let me quickly recap. So we started with our modules, which we're going to finish in a minute, but because we are going to use an image field and that is a file, we needed to create a new folder called media, which is going to take care of the uploading of the image where it's going to be stored. And we need to go into settings.py file to assign these two variables, media URL and media root. And we needed to import that into the urls.py file Socialbook and just configure the URL path. So now we can close this and now we'll be able to use an image field in our model. So now we say models.image field. But one more thing, we need to specify some things that Django is going to understand. So when a user wants to submit a form of this field, or when a user wants to submit a profile image, where does that image upload to? I know I said it's going to upload to the media folder, but where in that media folder is it going to upload to? So we want to have different categories or different folders under this media folder here. So we might have one that says profile images, we might have another folder that says post images, so we don't mix all the images together. So let's say this should upload, I'm going to use the upload to profile images. Now I know that under media folder we don't have any folder named profile images, but if we don't have any folder, what Django is going to do is that for the first time it's going to create a new folder there called profile images, and then from that time any image being stored through this field or through this model is going to be stored under media under profile image. So basically, since we don't have that created now, we can create it manually, but I prefer for Django to do that automatically. So it's just going to create profile images folder and it's going to store it there. So now that we have that out of the way, one more thing. So you know when you sign up to like Facebook and you don't yet have a profile picture, there's actually a default profile picture that Facebook puts for you. So we also want to do that, so that if the user doesn't have a profile picture yet, we want to give him a default profile picture. So what we're going to do now, right here, if you come into your static and you come into images, you're going to see that we have an image called blank profile picture. That's the name of the image, blank profile picture.png. I would love to show you here if that is going to open, but that's just basically a default profile picture that we're going to give the user. So okay, that's going to open. Good. So as you can see, this is just a default like profile picture for a user that didn't upload a profile picture yet. So now let's just copy the name of that file and quit this, and then what we just want to do is to say default equals to blank profile picture.png. But remember again, I said that anything dealing with these images or files in a Django model, it needs to be done in this like media folder. So when we are getting the default image, this blank profile picture.png, how does Django know that it's supposed to go into static images then look for this? No, Django doesn't know that. So what we are going to do, these blank profile images, we're just going to drag it from there and paste it in media. So we want to move that. So now it's in media. So when we say blank profile picture.image, Django is going to go into this media folder and look for that file. Since now that we know Django can see that file, we can continue with configuring the rest of our model files, our model fields. This profile image now is done. Model.image field is uploaded to profile images, and a default, so that's if the user didn't upload profile image yet or doesn't want to upload the profile image, it should just use this as the user's profile image. So now that we have that out of the way, let's start from the beginning right here. So here in this user, we want to link this particular profile to the user model using a foreign key. So what we need to do first is to get the model of the current user that is logged in or that is authenticated, and then that is going to be the default for this foreign key. So you're going to understand that now when we do that. So first of all, let's do from django.contrib.auth contrib.auth import get user model. So I want to import this attribute named get user model, which is just going to get the model of the currently authenticated user. So let's give it variable and say user equals to get user model. We're just initiating that, and now that we say user equals to this get user model, anytime we use this user now, it's just basically gonna be model of the currently logged in user. So now right here we're going to say models dot foreign key user on delete plus models cascade. That's good. So now what this is just doing is we have a foreign key that is linking to the being connected to this user, which is basically this user variable, which is this get user model that we imported. We have that done. Now this ID user is just meant to be an integer field. So models dot integer field. That doesn't need any attributes in here. So I know you might not understand why we have this ID user or why we have this user foreign key related to a foreign key that is connected to this. That if you are new, you might not understand that. But when we are using this in our project, when we are getting the post, when we are allowing the user to be able to follow another user, you know why, or you understand why all these are being done like this. So just follow along for now and let's get pop. So now we have the bio. The bio, we just want the bio to be a text field. So say model.text field, and we can give it blank equals true. Now this is because the user might not want to have a bio. It's not compulsory, so you can allow it to be blank. Now the location, models.character field this time around, and a character field has a max length of 100. Let's just give it a maximum length of 100, And let's also give it blank equals true, because the user might not want to put his location. That's not compulsory. All this is good. We have the user, ID of the user, the bio of that user, profile image, and the location. Now let's just return the basically the username. So say dev str self return self.user. So this self.user is just this. Let's get the username, that model. So what this is doing, this is not compulsory. You can remove this if you don't want. This is just in the naming of the model, so that when we are seeing the model in our admin panel, it's going to be showing the username and it's not going to be showing object 1 or object 2. I'm going to show you that like in a couple of seconds. So now we have this done. Now let's just go back to our command prompt and let's make migrations and migrate everything to our database. First of all, note that before you run migrations or anything, the app where you have these models.py, for us it is core, that's the name of the app. This app must be added to install apps in the settings.py file. So if we come down here, remember in the beginning I said let's just add this to avoid any error later. That is the main reason. So because we want Django to be able to see this app as part of this project, we need to add it to installed apps. So now we can be able to migrate our database. So basically, if you don't know the meaning of migrate or what I'm talking about, in Django, once we create all this data here, so this is basically like the name of the database, and these are tables in the database. So think about it like that. This is the name and these are tables, but these are each row like this. I wish I can like visualize this for you in a table, but just think about it like this: the name of that database, and this is each row in the table of that database. So now all this that we've done, we need to migrate it to our database. I'm going to show you that also. So we have to come right here. Let's opt out of the server real quick. Out. So yeah, done. And now to migrate our server, we'll just do manage python manage.py make migrations. Now once we make migrations, what this is doing is that any changes that we made in our models.py file is going to save that change before migrating it to our database. So if we come here and let's say we add blank equals false or something, blank doesn't have a false, but if we remove blank or something, since we've made a change, we need to come here and do python manage.py make migrations to save that change, then migrate again. Anytime you touch this file, you need to do that. Let's just that. Now that that changes has been made, let's just say python manage.py migrate. So now this is going to migrate that database, that model into our database. This is the first time we're running it, that's why it's migrating the auth, the admin, and every other thing. But the main thing we want to see migrating is this core. That's migrating. And now I want us to run our project and go to the admin to see our database. But we can't go to the admin to see our database because if we go there, we don't have any login yet that a user can use to log into the admin panel. So to create that, we're going to say python manage.py create super user. So this command line is going to create a super user. Now this super user means like a user that can access the admin panel. So any normal user that sign up from our site can't just use their login details to log into the admin panel. It's only we, the developers, that can create a specific super user and log into the admin panel. So now let's just say admin, give it book.com. Let's give it a password again. And it says the password is too common to the username. Let's just bypass that. So that is created successfully. And let's run our server again. py run server. As that is preparing to run, we're going to come back into our browser. Actually, let's open a private window. This private window is just for our admin panel, so that we'll be able to log into our admin panel and not interfere with logging in to a normal user. So hit this in private browsing and go to our website now /admin. Our website should be running now. Just come here and see. So as you can see right there, our website is running. Let's come down. Good. This is what we want to see. It basically gives us this login form to log into the Django administration. Now Django administration doesn't have a sign up form. The only way you can sign up to this Django administration is from your console. It's from your command line. Now let's log in with the details we just created. Log in with the password also, and we hit login. Good. So now that we hit login, you can see we have just two databases. We have groups and we have users. This is created by default in Django. So if we open these users, we're going to see one user, which is us, the super user, admin user. So let's wait for that. So as you can see, the username, admin, email address, and staff status. So remember I said that Django as a default gives us this user model, but it doesn't have enough fields for us to build this social media platform. It just gives us only username, email address, first name, last name, and a password. But we want more than that, as I said. So that's why we created a profile model. Now let's go back to our Visual Studio Code, because if we come back to home, you'll see that the model we just created, which is profile, is not showing here. So we also need to make sure that that shows here so we can manage that database. To do that is very simple, just like 2 lines of code. We'll come into a file named admin.py. Now this file is going to be in your app. Just click on the file. And the first thing to do right here is to import the model that you want to show in your admin panel. So from .models, import profile. Since it's profile, we want to show in our admin panel or register to our admin panel. Now we'll say admin.site.register profile. Now we're registering this profile model into the admin. If I save this now, I'm just gonna come back here and make sure everything loads successfully. And once that loads, I'm gonna go back to my admin panel, and now I should see my profile. Done. I'm gonna come here, and if I refresh this now, good. Now I see under this core app, see profiles. If I click on it, no profile yet, because we've not yet done anything to the profile. But this is the first step in the user authentication. So I hope you understand what we've done to this point. Created a specific profile model for each user. So when a user sign up, a profile model is automatically going to be created for them. Now we're going to do the registering of a user or the signing up of a user in next part. The next thing to do now is to set up the view for our registration, so to be able to register a user into our platform basically. So what we want to do now, let's just come into views.py. We want to create a new URL for our sign up. So let's just collapse this and this, just to make everything clean. So first of all, we're going to have to come into URLs and create a new URL for that view. So what we want to do, we want the user to be able to come to our website /sign up, and they'll be able to sign up to our platform or register on our platform. So let's add a comment here. So right now, just put sign up, and right here sign up, and the name also should be sign up. So basically our website /sign up, then you should go into views.signup, and it has a name of sign up. So we know we don't have views.signup yet. So we're going to have to come into views, create a new function named sign up, It's going to take a request, and let's just render our HTML template. So return render request sign up.html. Now this sign up.html basically this page here, sign up.html. So that's what we are rendering when the user goes to /sign up. So let's save this, also save our URLs. Basically we have that done, and let's just make sure that when we go to /sign up, it really renders this page. First of all, as you can see right here, our website is running, so we can go test that out. Now let's go to /sign up, enter. Good. So as you can see, our website is showing, and we are going to do some configurations. First of all, we want this to be sign up, want to change this to sign up, want to change this to social book, and maybe change the title. Let's go do that first. So we'll come back here, and then in sign up.html, so this again, remember, as I said, I already tweaked all the links for static. So now I'm just gonna change this to up, yeah, book. Okay, and let's scroll down right here where we see Tokyo, change it to social book. And right here where we see sign in, we have to change it to sign up. Yeah, so that's that. And this should be sign up. Let's just those changes. Sign up, social book, sign up. This is sign up. So we change this instead of this. So Z with that. Then right here we change this sign up. That should work now. Sign up, and this goes login. Good. So now we want the user to be able to sign up with just the username, the email, and the password. We don't really need the first name. If you want to collect the first name in your own application, you can do that, but we don't really need the first name and last name. Let's just collect the username, the email, and of course the user have to have a password. Right here where we see this form, let's distinguish this from the rest, make our work. We have this form here. What we're gonna do is the name, let's change it, and let's make it have, so we have all this style and everything done. Let's just, username is okay. Let's have an email. Type should be an email. Placeholder should be email, and all of them needs to have a name, because when we are collecting the data in our back end, we're going to collect them using the name of the particular field. So right here after type, the name, so this is the username, should have name of username. So let's just copy this. You have email, and this is what the password, right? So password, and this is, let's just say password 2, the confirm password. And we can also change this to password, the type, your password type for more security. And what again, I agree to the terms and condition. That is not really neat. So let's just comment that out. And now let's go ahead and see what we have now. So it automatically fills it in, basically. Let's just remove that. Hit this so it doesn't fill it in again. Now we have sign up, we have all of these, which is good. What we want to do, let's also scroll down button. everything is working good. So now right here in this form, we want the action, we leave it blank. Now when we leave this action blank, it means that once we hit sign up, all this data that is being inputted in here is going to be sent back to this sign up page. I'm going to show you why we do that. So now we have the action blank. Another thing we want to have is the method. We want to use the post method. Now in Django, there are two different type of method we use when submitting a form. Use the get method and the post method. Let me tell you why and when we use any of the two. We use a get method basically when we are passing like an information that is not confidential. So like let's say a user wants to search like Python. You have a search engine here, and the user wants to search like Python. So on that search form, you can use a get method because the value being shown is not confidential. It's just what the user is searching for. And when you're using the post method, it's basically where when you have confidential inputs like a password, we don't want the password to show. So if you use a get method, whatever is being searched or whatever is being submitted is going to be shown in the URL. But if you use a post method, those values are going to be hidden. So those are the major two difference. So if we're going to show an input in the URL, that input has to be an input that is basically not confidential, as I said, because if we are using like this sign up form and we're using a get method, we don't want to show the user's password in the URL bar. That is not a good practice. So that's why we use post method. Or let's say you have a platform where a user pays using his credit card information, and you don't want to use a get method in that situation because credit card information can be shown in the URL. So basically those are the major two differences. You can also do a quick search on Google if you want to dive deeper into that. Another thing is that when we use a post method in Django, we need to add this templating style called Csrf Token. Now this just take care of some malware, because this Csrf stands for cross-site request forgery. So it's basically like an attack, but when you put this, it basically takes care of that the Django way. We're not going to get too much deeper into that. Now let's save this, then let's come here and hit refresh and just input random things just to make sure that everything is working. Once we hit sign up, it brings us back to this page. That's what we want. So now that all this information is being sent to sign up view using a post method, what we're just going to do now in the views, we're going to get all of them using an if statement. So what we're going to say is that if request.method equals to post. So this simply means that when a user wants to look for this site, or when a user comes to this particular page, if this page is being summoned using a post method, then we're going to do a couple of things. If not, just show sign up. So when we just come to this page normally and just enter like this, it's not a post method here. So but when we submit a form and need sign up, we're sending back some information to this page using a post method. That's when we're going to be able to get those values. So what we're going to do now, that if the request of method is post, we're going to do some things. Let's pass first. Else, I mean, if it's not a post method, then just on this particular page. So now, if it's a post method, let's get all the value that has been sent to this view. So we can get that saying name equals to request dot post name. What I just did was that I add a new variable and I said request.post username. That means the data that is being posted here is going to get the value of that data using the name of the input. If I come back to sign up, remember I said they have to have a name. So when this is submitted, it's going to have like a name and a value. So using the name of this input, which is username now, in this views file, we'll be able to get the value. Now, if we just do something like print username, it's gonna basically print whatever we input here in our console. Just give me a minute and let's just add something random just fill it up and test what I just said. So as you can see, it's not yet getting any error like the password don't match, um all those type of stuff like the username is taken, the email is taken. We're still gonna do that. But now we hit sign up. Let's see. Gives us a value error. So it said views.signup didn't return. So it didn't return anything because we're not returning, we're not giving it a response, we're just getting the value. But we're gonna undo that. But let's come back here first and you'll see that right here gives me this value which I put in the form as the username. So basically we are getting the value of that form. And once we have the value that is being sent through that form, we can just use that to create a new object in our user model. Now let's go back here. And what we're just going to do is to copy this 4 times. So now we need to have email, password, and password 2, which is repeat password. So now the email has a name of email. Just advisable to copy it so you don't encounter any error in the names and stuff like that, even if you know you are correct. Password 2. Now we have all these values. Now that we have all these values, we can create, we can first check some things. We'll first check if the password 1 is equal to the password 2, because when we're saying confirm password, the 2 passwords have to be the same. We'll also check if the email exists. We'll also check if the username exists. But before we do all those, we need to import something. And what we need to import is the user model. User model, which is right here, which is this user model where all the users is being stored. So we need to import that right here. So first of all, let's say from Django.contrib.auth.models import user. Good. And we also want to import something named auth. Now this auth is going to allow us to authenticate the user. Now I think that's what we need for now. Just come down here back. So now this is, we're just gonna have another if statement. Come here. What I'm gonna say is if password equals to password 2, that means if the passwords are the same, then we'll do something pass for now. Else we'll have to give it an error saying that the password does not match. So to give an error, we're going to use something called messages. We also need to import that. So we have to scroll all the way up. So right here where we have, okay, we could have imported it from this. Let's just from Django.contrib import messages. Good. So this is going to be able to send a message if it's an error or a warning. Just going to be able to send a message to the front end. So now if the password is equals, if the 2 passwords are the same, we're going to continue and we'll not check again if the email is taken or the username is taken. But before we even go further, if the passwords are not the same, let's first send an error and tell the person that the passwords don't match. We're going to say messages. Let's use an info. Messages.info. Say request. And we'll just tell them the message. Say password not matching. And then we have to redirect the user back to the sign up page. But before we even use redirect, we also need to import redirect, but that's easy because we are importing redirect from Django.shortcut, which we already have here. So let's just say redirect. So now that we have that, we just say return redirect. to the sign up. So we are redirecting this user to the sign up by sending this message so that the user will be able to fill that form again, basically. So now that we have this, that's if the password are not equal. But if the password is equal, let's have another statement by saying if user, which is the user model, dot objects dot filter email equals email dot exist, we want to do something. So what this is saying is that if we go to the user model, we check each of the objects, then we filter and we find an object in which the email which is in the user model is equals to the email which is being posted to this view. If that exists, then we just want to tell the user that this email already exists. That means this email is already taken. The messages.info request email taken. And then once we tell the user that the email is taken, we want to redirect, say return redirect user to the sign up. Now that we have that, we will use another if statement, but elif. So else if we want to check if the username is taken, so say user dot objects dot filter username goes to username dot exist, and we just want to do the same thing by saying messages dot info request username taken, and then we're going to direct the person back to this page. So now, but what if password is equal, the username does not exist, and the email does not exist? Just say else. That means if there's no error, nothing bad happen, what we'll just do, now we want to create that new user. So we'll just say user equals to user dot objects dot create user. This one. So this one is going to be able to create a new user for us, and we'll just say username equals to this username that is being passed, and then the email equals to the email that is being passed, and also the password of that user. We'll just take one password because we don't need to store two passwords, just to pass. So we are storing the username, password, and the email, basically. Now that we have that, just say user dot save. Now that we save the user, this should work. But before saving the user or doing anything like that, before testing it, as I said, we created this profile model. So once we create a new user, we also want to create a profile model for that user. But before we test that out, let's just save this first of all, and let's go to our page. And we have this one. So what we want to do now, we want to test the error that we configured in here. Remember we said if password is not equal, it should give an error. So let's even test if that is working. So our set is okay, good. So now we'll give it this, just give it another one. Okay, so when I sign up now, if I come into my users, you'll see that there's no additional user that I created. And this is because obviously the password was not the same, so it can't create with two different passwords. But it didn't even tell us anything, like the password is not matching, I didn't create or whatever. How would the user know what happened? So we need to do that. What we are going to do is to go into the HTML file here. We're going to use a for loop. We're just basically going to pass those messages that is being sent and show it here, like password not matching or password correct or username taken and stuff like that. Let's quickly go back to our VS Code. So since we are sending all these messages already, we're using them to redirect, it should be easy. What we just want to do, come above form, let's have a new div tag. In there we want to have, say, for message in messages and h5. Let's just print that message. So this is just going to basically print the message for us, and let's end that for loop. But we want this to show like an error, so it should be like a color red or something, and it should be bold or something like that. So let's have a styling style. Right here we can just say h5. Let's give an h5 color of red. Let's save that. Send. That reloads. Good. So we refresh that page and the data we posted before was reposted back. As you can see now, it says password not matching. If we try to create, let's say, admin, because we already have a username admin, it should tell us username taken. Let's just give it blank. Let's make sure this same. Now you see it gives us username taken because the admin taken. So as you can see now, the error is being caught successfully. What we want to do now, if we make sure that there's no error, that means a new username, email, and password, is going to create a new user for us in here. But we don't want to do that yet, because if we create a new user now, only the user object is created, but a profile object won't be created for that user. So let's go back to our code and make sure that once a user is created right here, once we have a new user created, we also want to create a new profile, let's say a new profile object for that user. So first thing we're going to do, let's log the user in. So we'll say log the user in. No, we're not going to log the user in first of all. The first thing I want us to do, okay, so before we log the user in, we're not going to log the user in yet. That's because when we log the user in, I want the user to be automatically redirected to like the settings page where you can upload profile and put his bio and location. But since we don't have that yet, let's just create a profile model for that user first, before then when we have the settings done, we can come back and change that. So let's just have a comment here and say log user in and direct to settings page, so we don't forget about that. And now right here, let's just create a profile object for the new user. What we're going to do now is say user underscore model, the user dot object dot get username equals to username. So what I'm doing now is that, first of all, because in here, for us to create a new profile, we need to give that profile the user that owns this profile. Give that user, we'll be able to give it this value. we need to have the object of the user. We don't just need to have the username or the ID of the user. We need to have the object of that specific. So that's what I'm getting now. I'm saying the user model should be user, the object dot get, the one in which the username is equals to this username that was just created right now. And then once we have that, we say new profile and be equals to profile dot objects dot create user and be equals to the user model, and also the ID of the user. Once we get the ID of the user, ID user was what we used, can be equals to the user model dot ID. So these are the only two things we want to give as default. Come back here to our models, gave it this value, the user object, and we gave it the ID of the user. So the biography, the profile image, and the location, the user is going to create that self. So now let's just save this user basically and finalize the creating of the profile model. So we just say new profile dot save, then and just redirect the user the login page. But right now we don't have a login page, so since we don't have a login page, I'm not going to be able to redirect the user anywhere. So let's just redirect the user back sign up. So when we create a login page, we're going to be able to redirect the user. So let's save this now. And once we have this saved now, we can come project that. Let's make sure our project here. Good. So since it's running now, let's create a new user. Let's say John at g.com. Let's give him a password. Let's sign him up. It gives us a name error. Now this is because it said name profile is not defined, and this is because we are using this profile name but we didn't import it right here. So we need to import that profile model from the models.py file. Say from .models import profile. Good. This should work now. If we come back in here, John at g.com, give my password. Now we hit sign up. So it says email taken. Now this is where the error comes, because we tried to create a new user. So we created a new user for right now when it says name profile not defined. The error was here that profile was not defined, but that didn't stop that from creating a new user. So a new user was already created, but the profile object was not created for it. So this is just, we're still in the testing phase. So right now we come back here and hit refresh. See John as a new user, and as you can see, it's not a staff. This staff means it can't access this admin panel. Come into profiles, see that we don't have any profile right here, but we are supposed to have a profile for John. This was because John was already created before we fixed the bug about the profile name not defined. So now let's delete John first of all. Now let's try to log in again. Good. I refresh that page. Once I refresh that page from this button, it's going to send that post data again. But if I refresh it from here, it's just going to load the page normally. So since that post data was sent again, John user is now created and John profile model is now created. So let's go check that. I hit refresh. So it didn't create it. If I come to profile also, it didn't create it. That means when I hit refresh, it didn't submit that post again. Normally in like normal browsers like I think Chrome, once you hit refresh here, it's supposed to submit that again. But I'm using Microsoft Edge. this video, so I think that's why it didn't work. But let's just quickly go ahead and start. Energy.com, password, sign up. Good. Let's just save it here. So we have this sign up done. Normally, it's supposed to like take us to the login page to log in, or it should just automatically authenticate us into the platform. But since we've not yet done all those stuff, we just made it redirect back to this page first of all. But since we came out to this page without an error, we should be expecting now that the user and the profile object has been created. If we come back here, come to users, see now that we have user john@g.com. Come to profile, good. We have a new profile for John. That is good. So the user is basically this John user, and this is the ID of the user. So also we're going to be able to allow them to update their bio, update their profile image and location. As you can see, as a default, the profile image is blank profile picture.png. Is this that we gave it. Good, that's working fine. Everything is fine to this point right now. Next step is to be able to allow the user log in into our platform. Now let's create the login view for our application. So we want the user to be able to go to /signin, and then the user should be able to sign in to the application. Let's go back to VS Code. For now, let's just collapse this. So right here in URLs, let's create a new view. I will name it sign in. Let's just take that, copy it, paste. Right here also, open this again, scroll down and create a new view. Say df sign in request return render request sign in.html. Now that we have this, let's first of all go ahead and collapse this. Let's save this, and let's also save this. So now once a user goes to /sign in, we should have that. So let's go test that out. /sign in. Good. So it gives us this. Let's also tweak this very well for everything to work good. And we'll come back here. But before we even do that, let's go back to the sign up page, and once a user clicks on this login, let's take this out to the sign in view and also right here. If we go to sign up, we'll look for where we have login. Let's say F to search. We'll search for login. So do you have an account? This should be to /sign in. For the second one is right here at the top right corner of our application. Let's take them to /sign in. Good. So now we have this. If we come back here and hit refresh, now it says do you have an account? If we click login, it takes us to login. Good. Now let's open up our login page, sign in right here, and then where we have sign in, let's sign in to social book, and let's scroll down. I want to change this also to social book. Did and what else? So this is login. Let's create an account and register. We want to change create an account and register to, want to make it go to the sign up view. To register, go to the sign up /sign up. Now create an account goes to /sign up. Good. So this is done. Let's come back in here and hit refresh. Social book. Now let's just remember me. we are not really using that this video, so let's just comment that out too. Yeah, good. So now what we just need is to configure this, make it have a post method and all those fun stuff. So first of all, as I did last time, let's just leave a space in our form just to distinguish it, and right here let's have a name, the name, and this is the password. If I type of this password, and the placeholder, I'll love it to be password. Good. Now all this is working fine. Let me save and see. Name, password, and each of them have a name now. So the action should come back to this login view, and method the post. As I said, whenever we use a post method, we need to add Csrf token. Good. Now that we have this, once a user hits submit or login, send that to our login view. So let's see. We have this login. Okay, so that's basically because we didn't refresh the page. So let's refresh this page. Is anything in there? Login. Okay, so it just comes back here, which is what we want. Now let's do a similar approach to what we did in our sign up. So right in our sign up now, login view, we're just gonna say gonna use an if statement again, just like we used earlier. So let's just say if request sub method equals to post, and we're gonna do something else, just return this page. This is what we want to do now, and this is quite easy. What we just want to do is to get the username and password. Just to request dot post username and copy and paste this password. It is paste this. Right now, what we want to do is to create a new variable and say user equals to auth dot authenticate. I want to authenticate with username equals to username, password equals to password. So we're authenticating with the username and password. Good. Now that we have that initialized, use an if statement. We'll say if user is not none. And what this means is that if the user is not none, so for this to be able to work, that means we need to even have a user with this password in our database. So if we have it, that means if it's not none, that means if it's there, if it's present in our database, then let's just authenticate and we'll say auth.login. Take a request. I want to log in this user. I'll say return direct to the home page. So now when we log the user in, we want to return the user to the home page. Else, now this just simply means that if the user is none, that means if he's not, there, if he doesn't really have an account and he's trying to log in with a fake credential, send a message error. So say messages.info request, and let's say credentials invalid, and then we'll just redirect the user. Let's copy from here, paste. So we're just redirecting the user back to this sign in page. Good. So for need, so everything is working here. If it's a post method, get it, initialize the authenticate the auth, and check if the user is not none, then authenticate. If it's none, give him an error. And yeah, now let's save this, and we also have to come into our sign in to add the div tag that is going to take care of the error messages. So we can just come down here and copy that. Basically the same thing. Sign in, save. We come here, go to sign in, and we say if something that is not in our database. You can see now it says credential invalid, so that's an invalid credential. But if we really give something that is in our database, which is John, you can see now it is authenticating, and boom, it takes us to the home page. So this is working fine, and once a user authenticates, it takes user to the home page. Now we want to do two more things. We want the user to be able to log out. So once the user come here and click log out, that should be able to log out and no more be authenticated. And also we want it that before a user can access this page, the user must be logged in. If the user tries to come to this page when he's not logged in, it's going to be redirected to the login URL. I'm going to show you how to do that. First of all, let's create a new path for logout. Logout. Come to views, logout. I'm gonna take a request also. So let's just close that up. So this logout view is quite easy. All we just need to do here, say auth the log out request. Then we'll now run direct sign in form. Since we have this now, and just easily come into the index and search for logout. Right here, logout. Right here where we have logout now, just say logout. Come back here now and hit refresh. Come here, say logout. Boom, we are logged out, and it takes us to the login page to login. One more thing we want to do, as I said, is that if I come to this home page now, you see I'm still able to even access this home page while I'm not even logged in. We want that to stop. So for us to do this, we're going to use a decorator. Django has this built-in function that allows us to basically take care of this login. Like when a user is not logged in or not authenticated, we want to redirect the user to a page before bringing them back to another page. So let me show you what I mean by this. First of all, we are going to need to import something. So let's scroll all the way up. Right here, I say from Django.contrib.auth.decorators import login required. And this login required is going to allow us to be able to direct a user to the login page if it's not logged in and trying to access a page. So as I said, once a user wants to access this index page, it needs to be logged in. For me to do that now, I can easily configure this and say if user is not logged in or is not authenticated, then redirect the person. But I don't want to do that. So what I want to do is, because this is a better way to do it, just like a line of code. I'm just going to say at login required. I'm going to specify the login URL. So that means URL, it should redirect the user into, that is sign in URL. So if I save this now and I come here to this home page, as you can see, it takes me to this login because I am not logged in. And you see, automatically after I sign in, it takes me to the home page. So let me go to John, and okay, that was valid credentials, John. So right now I can view this page. One more thing I need to do is to also put that login required in logout, because a user can be logged out already and can come to log out to try and log out. So let's just make sure that the user is logged in first before you can log out. So let's just copy this. That's good to go. That's basically how to do that. And save that. And now we have everything done about the authentication to this point. So now we can just log in. Sure. Good. So to this point now, we're able to log in. So now let's go ahead and continue with the settings view. So this settings view basically is going to be where the user can upload or change his profile image, or you can also like add his bio and like a location, or change his bio and location. So what we want to do first of all, in the URLs, let's create a new URL and we're going to name the URL settings. So just say settings, and it should take from the views.settings and name equals settings. Also views, now we need to come here and create a new view, and let's name that view settings. Take a request and we just render the settings.html, which is this page, setting.html. So now we can save this, but before we save, we also want to give it this login required decorator. And this is because a user can't come to settings or to change profile image or something like that if they are not logged in. That's just not possible. So we give it that, and let's save it. So now if we go back to check our application, you should be able to go to /settings. So let's see, settings, SETTS. Once we come here, it should basically load up that page. Good. So we have this form here right now. So we're going to tweak this form a lot. We don't need this. We basically don't need most of this. What we just want is a file field or an image field, the text field for the bio, something like this, and a location field. That's what we want. But you know, if you want to add your own customization, you can add anything you want. You can allow the user to be able to, you know, update first name and last name, working in a relationship, even all of this. But just for this tutorial, what we're going to be doing is just basically the fields we created in our profile model, which we didn't set. So if I come into models.py, you know that we've already set user and user ID for each user, but we haven't set bio, profile image, and location. So that is the form where a user will be able to, you know, set all of that. So what I want to do now, I'm going to come to the sign up. So now once a user basically is logged in, so a user creates an account, and right here I said log in user, and then redirect to the settings page. So that what we want to do now. So we want to automatically log in that user and redirect to the settings page, because now if you've been following along, you know that once a user sign up, nothing is going to happen. It just brings that user back to this page. But what we want to do is that once a user sign up, it should take the user, first of all, automatically log in the user, and then take the user to settings page. So let's do that. So say user underscore login equals to auth.authenticate. I want to authenticate with username, password. I'm gonna give it the username that's just been created, and also password with the password that has just been created. So now once we have this, we can just use say auth.login Down here we'll say auth the login. Take a request. I want to log in using this user login right here. So now it's gonna log the user in, and then once it logs the user in, it's gonna create a profile object for that user. And after saving that profile object, we want to redirect the user to the settings page. We're taking the user to the settings page and not back to the sign up. So this is what we want. So we can just go ahead and close this up. And if we come to the sign in, that is taken care of. So once the user is logged in, just take the user to the home page where you can see the post feeds and everything. So that is done, and we can just save that. What we want to do now is to come into the settings, and we want to first of all go to the HTML page and change some things in here. So if we basically just go into settings.html, so right here we're going to change some things. We're going to remove some form, tweak some form, and yeah, so let's get started with that. So right here where we have, let's see what we want to remove. Where we have account settings, we don't want to remove it actually. We just want to add some things in there. So you can see where we have account settings right here. We want to show like account setting for this user, like maybe for John, which is the user. So whichever user is currently logged in, we will want to show. So first of all, and we also want to have a link here where user can go to the home page back, because right now user can't just go. User has to start removing the URL bar to go or pressing back. We don't want that. We want a link here that will allow the user to go home. So we'll come back here and we'll have an a tag, and that should just take the user to the home, and we'll close it and we'll say home, save that and come back here, hit refresh. So it says home, account settings. If I click on this home, it takes me to the home page, but we want to do something like home/account settings, so we know that that's the directory we are in. So let's say home/account setting, but now we'll say account setting for, then we'll show the user, but that user has to be in a bold tag. So to show the currently logged in user in the Django template or in the HTML file, this is what we do. We open two curly braces and close it, and we'll say user.username. That's what we do. If you want to show the email, which I don't know why you show that, but you want to show it to be user.email, so let's just hit refresh button. So as you can see, it says home/account settings for john@g.com, which is the email the user put when he was logging in. So let's just say user.username. Now we'll save this, hit refresh. So account settings for John. Now that is good. We've done that. Next thing we want to do, to go back here, and then we're going to scroll down. First of all of these UL tag, basically don't need it. Just gonna comment that out. So I'm actually building this from scratch, so you understand everything that we're going to be doing here. And after this, let's have like a break just to leave the space. So there's a little bit of space there, and let's have like a line to demarcate fresh. So there's just a line there just to demarcate this is the title and this is the main page. Now that we have this, just close that gap. Now we're gonna come here. In this basic, we want something like general settings. So this should be like the general setting. Let's just change it to general. Now that's done. And now let's tweak the form. But before we even do that, we don't need privacy also. So we're gonna scroll down right here. You see where we have this privacy. So all the way from here to the end of the privacy div tag, I have to close all of that. So from here, close this. that. So now that just basically close that div tag for us. Let's scroll down. Yeah, so that's good. And if we save it and go back there now, we don't have that again because we don't need it. And the next thing we want to do is to remove first name, last name. We want to remove email. That about me, we want to change it to bio. We want to leave location, remove working at, and remove relationship. So we're basically just removing the things we don't need and keeping the things that we need. Yeah. First name. Nope. About me, we change this to bio. Give it an ID of bio. Name of bio. Actually, we can leave the ID, but what we need to change is the name. That's how we're going to be using to get it in a backend. So now the location, we're going to leave that, and what we need to add is the name for this location. So since we don't have a name, just say name equals location. Good. So come back here and hit refresh. We have bio, we have location, and we don't need working at and relationship. So working at, relationship, be gone. So we remove that. Let's save and refresh. Good. So what we want to have now is another field for the profile image. So we're going to go up here, have tag like this, and then I'm going to say profile image. This will be a file field. The name be profile. Let's just give the name image. Let's save this. Hit refresh. So now we have this. We have the profile image, the bio, and the location. So we're also gonna do something like, when you go to like Instagram and you already have a bio, once you come to the settings, you'll see the bio you already have there. So for example, let's say we have a bio here and we hit save. If we hit save and it's saved to our database, when we come back here, we don't see that bio here. We want to be able to see that bio. So we're going to do that later, and you're basically going to understand what I'm talking about when we do that. But first of all, since we have all of this done, let's just make sure we have our form, because all of this needs to be in a form so we can send it to the view. So right here, that general right here, what we just need to have here now, the form. So let's do the form. We're going to go ahead and close that form at the bottom. So we're closing the form right before this other comment somewhere. We also have a button to save that. So we have this save button here. Okay, so we have this save button. It should be right here. So let's just leave that like that. And then since we have this done already, let's just set an action. So let's set an action. So as always, we want it to come back here and have a method of post. We also need to set up the Csrf token. So now that we have all this set up, in this button here, this button should be submit button. First of all, we don't need this cancel. What? But we can do something like, once they hit cancel, take them to the home page. Let's just put that in there. Slash. So if they cancel and they don't want to do that again, look at the bottom left corner, you'll see that it's taking them to the home page. So that's what we want. And this save button, type button, actually the type should be submit, just so that it submits this form. Now we hit refresh. Maybe able to save and it brings back here. Good. So now all of this is working fine. Next step is to go into our views. Right here in our views, where we have these settings, we're gonna have to do a little bit of coding here. So what we're gonna do first of all, we want to get the particular profile object of this user, of the logged in user. The user profile goes to profile dot objects dot get user equals to request dot user. So basically what this is doing is saying that we have a new variable named user profile, and the value we are giving that is profile dot object dot get. That means we're getting a particular object. So we're getting the profile object in which the user, come back here, in which the user is the currently logged in user, currently authenticated user. Since we have that, what we want to do is to pass, let me just make sure I'm copying that, pass that into our HTML view. So like this, user profile and user profile. So now that we have this, if I come into my HTML settings.html, I can actually do something now. So as you know, as default, a user already have like a profile picture. We already have a profile image that we gave the user when he first of all come here. You see that profile image has a default of blank profile picture. So since the user has a profile image, we should be able to tell the user that there is a profile image here. We should be able to give it like a value, a default value here. Then if the user wants to change, then it can go ahead and change. And also the same thing, if the user already has a bio, we want to show it here so he can edit or change. Same for location. So I'm going to come back to settings. First of all, let's start with the bio. So we don't have a value, so let's have a value in the bio. No, since this is a text area, we don't put the value here. In here is where we put the value. So we just use the curly braces and we say user profile dot bio. Since we already sent that from the views to the HTML, it should be fine. So user profile dot bio. Location, this is an input, so it needs to have a value. If it's having a value, it doesn't need a placeholder. So let's give value, and let's say user profile dot location, and this is gonna automatically fill this place in if the user has a bio or location. If we refresh, we shouldn't see anything yet, so we're not submitting it. Does it enter? We won't see anything here because this user doesn't even have a bio or location. But now let's come to profile image. For us to do this, is gonna be the same actually. So what we're just gonna do is to say after placeholder, or we don't even need a placeholder, we'll say value equals to user profile dot profile img. Now if we save this and come here and hit refresh, now right here we're supposed to see the current profile image of the user, but we're gonna fix that again in after we do something, and I'm gonna also explain why we do that. But first of all, let's leave this like this, and what we want to do is basically just come into views. Right now, once the user hits submit, we want to be able to send all this data to the views, update the data, or even create a new data for that particular user. So for this image, HTML has this security system that doesn't give a default image. So that's why we're not going to be able to use this value for this image. Now, I remember working on a few projects a while ago, and we tried to do this, but because HTML has this security system, as I said, that it won't allow you to put an image or a default image when a form loads, just for some kind of securities, and that's why we're not going to put value for that. But there are other ways to go about this. First of all, if there is a user, we can just display the URL here that you already have a profile, or you want to update or something, or we can just even showcase the profile image here. So let's see what we can do. Now this is not too important, but just to make sure that we do something there, we can have an image src, and that can be from profile user profile dot profile img dot url. So let's make sure we change this to dot. Let's save this first of all and hit refresh. As you can see, it basically just shows the current profile, and if we change it, we're going to change it in a bit, but if we change it, this should change also. Let's try to style that with, I don't know, 25, height 5. I'm just testing the size first, see how small. Okay, that's too small, so let's give it like 100. Okay, so that is good. Now you might want to put it in another way, or anyhow you want to do it. So first of all, let's say we should have like current image, or anyhow we want to do it, but let's just leave it like this first of all. So this is the current profile image. That is good. Now what we just want to do now is to come into the views, and right here in the views, we're gonna say if request dot method equals to post, and we want to get something. And what we want to get first of all, we want to get if the user actually tries to update the profile image or not. Now this is because in our models we made sure that this profile image right here is compulsory. So when submitting a new form, we're supposed to have a profile image. So we can say if request dot files dot get image equals to none. So again, there are plenty ways you can do all these things. Like this is just the way I'm going to do it in this tutorial. So what we're just saying now is that if the request of file.get is equals to none, so that means if there is no image being sent, then we just want to get only. So if we scroll down here, what we just say let's even get the image also. Image goes to user underscore profile dot profile image. What this is doing is that if the user didn't submit any image, it's just getting the current image that is ready, that the user already have, and just like resubmitting that again basically. So then we are just getting the bio request dot post bio, and we also do the same for the location. Let's get the location. So now since we have all of this, we can just update the user's profile object. So now what we want to do first of all, because we already have a file being sent. So for us to have a file being sent, if we come into this form right here, whenever you are sending a file, you need to make sure that you have another like attribute in here. So what we want to do, because HTML and also when working with Django, we need to configure some things. Like, when we use post method, we have the Csrf token. So when we're submitting a file in the form, we need to make sure that we have enc type, and then we'll say multi-part / form data. Now this must be there, because if this is not there, it's not going to submit that form. It's going to submit the rest, the text, the text area, all those values. Is going to submit them, but it's not going to submit the image or the file. And you must make sure you have this in. Let's just save that. Now we can come back to the views, and in here let's just basically say user profile dot profile image goes to image. Do the same thing and say user profile dot bio. I want to make it equals to bio. and also user profile dot location, make it to be equals to location. Now that we have all of this, let's just say user profile dot save. Now we've updated that particular model. But what if the user is submitting an image? So let's say if request dot files dot get image is not equals to none. Use the exclamation mark. There is not none. Then that means there's something there. So now, since we have that, we're basically just gonna get that image that the user sent. So say image be equals to request. And now when we're getting image, even if we're using a post method, it's going to be quite different. Say request dot get request dot files, because we're dealing with files, and dot get, we're going to have no brackets, say image. So we want to get the value, store it as image, and then we just want to basically do the same thing for the bio. So we just copy this here. So bio, we're just saying request of post bio location, request of post location, and we're saying user profile dot profile image equals to image, and the same for bio and location, and then we are saving it. And once we save it, we want to redirect the user. So say return direct back to this settings. Now that we have all of this configured, this should totally work. Let's go ahead and test that out. I'm gonna come back here, hit refresh. Now let's change this profile image. Let's see what we can change it to. Just allowing that to load up folders, and we have all of these images here. Let's just change it to one of it. So it gives it this, and let's say bio, I am John. Coolest nerd. And location, let's just say Manchester. Now we can save. Once we save, boom, see, it brings us back to this page. But now this profile image has been updated. Now the bio says I am John and I am the coolest nerd, and it gives us location. Actually, best case, doesn't need to be a nerd. So we save that, and you can see that also updates. Let's come to home, and if I go back to account settings, not sure if I've updated that. Okay, it's still saying settings.html, but if we go /settings, you see that that bio is there, so it has been saved in our database. We have the location there also, and the profile image saved. So if we come right here and then we go to John's profile object, what we should see now is John, the ID, his bio, a link to his profile image, and then Manchester. Another thing I want you to see is how this profile image uploaded basically. So remember that in here, now models said you should upload to profile images. So as you can see here, that's what it did. He uploaded to profile images / i.jpg, whatever the name of the file is. So if I come into media now, no, not social book, media, you can see now that I have a new folder named profile images, and in there I have the image that the user uploaded. Basically, that's how we can configure these settings. So what we just want to do, the last thing, is to come into index right here where we have account setting. On that, to go to /settings. That should work, and we do not need explore and not also help. So let's save this and come back here, go to home. Come here now, we should be able to go to the account settings to see it, and we can change the location. Let's say it moved on, let's say Toronto, and we save it now. The location is Toronto. Go to home, come back to the account settings. So that is still there basic. And we can also cancel like we don't want to do. And it brings us back here. So for now, we've been able to have the account settings for the user where he can update his bio, his location, and his profile image. Now let's move to the next step.